David Belgrove, the Director of Training and Doctrine here present, the SO1 Training, British Army Peace Training Team Africa, the Commanding Officer of the Guards Battalion, the company commander of QRF-2, the chief instructor of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, the team leader of the British Army Short-Term Training Team, the members of the British Army Short-Term Training Team from the Queen's Dragon Guards, officers of QRF-2 here present, course participants, the Regimental Sergeant Major of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, members of the Esteem Media Fraternity here present, all other protocols respectfully and duly observed. Good morning. As Commandant of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, on behalf of all the officers and soldiers of this training establishment, and of course, on behalf of all graduating members of the Quick Reaction Force 2 of the Gambia Armed Forces, I warmly welcome you all to this morning's event, marking the graduation ceremony of these distinguished and erudite officers and soldiers of the Gambia Armed Forces. 3 weeks ago, the British Army Short-Term Training Team, under the leadership of Lieutenant Arden Walls, arrived to support the Gambia Armed Forces in preparing the Quick Reaction 2 for future peace support operations in any United Nations mission around the world. In collaboration with the Gambia Armed Forces Training School instructors, the team deployed in Yundum Barracks on the 12th of September 2022 to commence an intensive 3 weeks of peace support operation training covering peacekeeping thematic areas such as base security, combat casualty care, gender training, international humanitarian law, the protection of civilians, improvised explosive device awareness, and of course counter improvised explosive device techniques, vehicle checkpoint manning, searching methods, public order management, convoy operations, just to name but a few. Today's world is filled with war, terror, and turmoil, as well as confusion. While men have made many technological inventions, they are not able to create peace. Scientists have unleashed the power of the atom, but are powerless to check their danger for humanity. The biggest danger in front of us today is that violence and science have both joined hands not only to destroy the peace of the universe, but also to threaten the very existence of humanity. Therefore, we have lost our peace in some parts of the world, and peacekeeping is one of the only tools or options the international community, through the United Nations Security Council, could use to restore peace and security in these areas. An ideal society needs to be built by mankind, a society that is spiritually beautiful, materially affluent, and humanly rewarding. It can only be possible if there is peace and security in the world. The importance of peace for any society is obvious. Without peace, no nation or individual can move forward. Only in a peaceful atmosphere, mankind can secure greater heights. A society without peace is like in the state of nature, brutish, barbaric, short and dull, and it could also be nasty, as Thomas Hobbes pointed out. Everyone professes a desire for peace as an ultimate goal. This prompts everyone to find out what are the conditions necessary for peace to ensure a stable peace. For many centuries, mankind was led to believe that a major war is required to end all the wars for all the times to come. History has shown that this belief itself has been the cause of many conflicts. Wars cannot bring peace. Retaliation only causes counter-retaliation. Peace can only be brought by non-violent means, such as peacekeeping. Thus, this justifies the ever-increasing need to build and enhance the peacekeeping skills, knowledge, and abilities of members of the Gambia Armed Forces. Over the past 3 weeks or thereabout, our British colleagues, friends, and brothers, in collaboration with the instructors from the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, have worked night and day to enhance our peacekeeping abilities as a force. The skills and drills of our force is now much more sharper and more effective, and this can only increase our standing as a contender for peacekeeping slot in any mission around the world to contribute in global peace and security. To the team from the British Army, I admire your dedication, your professionalism since you arrived. Thanks for the good work and conduct that you have manifested over the past few weeks. We will sorely miss you when you leave us. Today, there are a lot of people to thank. Without progressing, I want also to acknowledge the contribution of the commanding officer of 1 Infantry Battalion, who has not only provided us with the ground where we conducted the training, but he enabled us also to execute any logistics tasks that included your feeding in partnership with the British so that your training is a success. Indeed, without his support, today wouldn't have been possible. To the participants in this course, I thank you for your diligence and cooperation, without which things could have been otherwise today. Indeed, I never doubted the levels of your professionalism and discipline. Therefore, I stand here to congratulate you for this wonderful achievement. To His Excellency, the British High Commissioner to the Gambia, Your Excellency, sir, we are grateful. For all this is possible through your efforts. The logistics support was absolutely remarkable, and we thank you, sir, Your Excellency. And finally, to the Defense Headquarters, of course, our higher headquarters. General, sir, thank you very much for your continuous support and guidance. As a training establishment, you have always guided us. You have guided me as the commandant of the training school. And without this guidance, things could have been very different. You have not only upgraded and lifted the infrastructure of training in the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, you have demonstrated keen interest in training by providing us the requisite logistics at any time we requested for such assistance from your headquarters. There is no time when we requested for logistics support, and the Defense Headquarters turned it otherwise. The Chief of Defense Staff and his able team of staff, principal staff officers at the Defense Headquarters have always supported us. And today, I stand here to thank you on behalf of all members of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School and anybody who in the future will be trained in the Gambia Armed Forces Training School. For through your leadership, you have made the training environment very conducive for learning. And I thank you very much, Sir General.
Thank you very much, Commander. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. On that note, I want to thank you and congratulate you. Thank you very much.
Speeches, so I'll keep it brief. 3 weeks ago, I landed in the Gambia for the first time with no real idea of what to expect. I had no idea of what to expect from the country itself, from you, the contingent that I would be training, and I had no idea of what to expect from my team and how they would perform in this different environment. Having been here now for 3 weeks and having conducted the training, I can honestly say that I'm amazed. Amazed at how beautiful this country is, amazed at how enthusiastic you have been as a contingent, both by the contingent and the training school and their commitment to working, and amazed at how well the training has been delivered and received. In such a short space of time, only 12 days, we have seen such a massive improvement from this contingent, and I have no doubt that you would represent the UN to a very high standard in days to come. I would finally like to thank all of you for your hospitality in welcoming us to your country and your commitment, the effort you've put into the training. And a special thanks to our training school partners for all of your efforts. We as a team have had an excellent time in the Gambia, and I'm sure that we'll miss it. I'll be recommending this to my friends for days to come. I hope that one day you will have us back. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
I'd like to start by thanking you very much for inviting me to this closing ceremony for this phase of the UN Quick Reaction Force Company pre-deployment training led by the officer and soldiers of the Queen's Dragoon Guards. We know that the Gambia and the United Kingdom have a long and proud history of working together. Our military ties are particularly strong since Lieutenant Colonel Trevor Stewart worked alongside your predecessors in this very training school to help support the restructure of the Gambian army. As already said, I represent the British Peace Support Team. We are a team based in Ghana, Kenya and Ethiopia, and we're a team of British military and civilians who live and work in Africa. And our role is to support African nations, particularly those aspiring or conducting peacekeeping operations. But we have a particularly strong bond with our Gambian brothers and sisters because you have such an unblemished history of excellence on peacekeeping operations with the United Nations, with the AU and with ECOWAS, which we respect. We as a team are determined to support you in your aspiration to get a formed unit back on UN operations. And we know the strength and the character of Gambian forces. In fact, on a personal note, during my last tour in MONUSCO, I served with one of the officers based here, Major Emi Ba. She was a genuinely excellent officer and a huge support to my force plans team, as well as helping us out with some medical issues along the way. In the UK, this is a period of austerity, and it is remarkable that the support we're providing to the Gambian Armed Forces has not only been maintained this year, but expanded. And I hope that's a demonstration of how fully committed we are to assist you in your ambitions to deploy on UN operations. Indeed, we're already planning to return with another team in November to support your work to prepare for a PDV, a pre-deployment visit assessment. And actually today is a fantastic day because we just heard yesterday the arrival of the first armoured fighting vehicles. And this will go directly to the UN headquarters in New York and demonstrate that the Gambia is moving forward. And we hope that will help unlock our collective aspiration. As already mentioned, we've been very impressed with the enthusiasm and the capability of the service people on this course. And we look forward to building your knowledge and experience and learning from you as well. I particularly enjoyed the operational stories that I heard from RSM Lamin Fati, who served 32 years in your military, and I've learned along from him last week. As mentioned previously, following interaction with Colonel Omar Bojang, this year we've expanded our training to include gender and international humanitarian law. And I would like to thank you all for your excellent feedback and your interaction with those instructors and your welcome that they received on arrival here in the Gambia. I believe this part of the course has been particularly successful. And indeed, last week, your officers and soldiers not only received the training, but delivered training, particularly in gender training. And that was excellent to see. And the standard that you delivered was first class. So I'll close by thanking you again for inviting us to this ceremony. It is a genuinely great privilege to work in the Gambia, and we look forward to working with you again in November and over the coming 3 years. Before I hand over for the presentation of the awards, I'd like to say that I know the competition for the top student and the other awards has been extremely high. And we're very grateful again for the excellent commitment that you've all shown under some difficult circumstances over the last few weeks. And we look forward to seeing you again in November. Thank you all very much indeed.
I respectfully call on the Commandant of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School to issue the certificates. I respectfully call on the Director of Training, Gambia Armed Forces, to issue the certificate, sir. May I call on the BPST Africa Rep, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Jenner, to present the certificates. Captain Dabo is receiving this award for his impressive performance in the field training exercise, ranging from the planning stage to the execution out at the field. I have the honor to call on the British High Commissioner, David Belgrove, to present these medals.
Up! Up!
I call on Trooper Henry to step forward.
The Director of Training and Doctrine, the Team Leader, British Peace Support Training Team, Commandant Officer, Guards Battalion, the Commandant, Gambia Armed Forces Training School, members of directing staff, British Peace Support Training Team, fellow participants of Peace Support Training, and members of the press. I am Lieutenant Colonel Amadou Bojan, QRF2 Commander. This morning, I shall be giving vote of thanks, marking the end of the Peace Support Training for QRF2. So the military element of national power has arguably been the dominant factor by which a nation assesses its relative strength among the community of nations. To achieve this relative strength, military must be resourced and trained adequately by her nation. Resourcing and training the military ensures its operational efficiency in any theater of operations. It is against this background that the Office of the Chief of Defense Staff facilitates training packages for the members of the Gambia Armed Forces. One of such training packages is the just concluded peace support operation conducted at the Gambia Armed Forces Training School. The training was conducted by our esteemed instructors of the British Army. This training has greatly enriched our military experience and broadened our knowledge on peace support operations. We are now better informed and prepared for peace support operations in the Gambia and elsewhere. Sir, we assure you that the knowledge gained during the training will be put into good use throughout our military career. On this note, on behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff and participants of QRF2, I wish to thank His Excellency, the President, the Commissioner, British High Commissioner, David, the British Defense Attaché, Lieutenant Colonel Jenny, SO1 British Army Peace Support Training Team Africa B. I wish to also thank Lieutenant Walsh and his training team, and also Director of Training and Doctrine. I wish to also thank the Director of Logistics, the Commanding Officer, 1 Infantry Battalion, and also the Commandant, Gambia Armed Forces Training School, Lieutenant Colonel Abraiba, and his officers and men of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School for their invaluable support in creating a conducive training environment and logistic support throughout the course. We hope that when next the Gambia Armed Forces require your assistance in a similar capacity, you will kindly oblige her. To our instructors, we wish you safe and journey mercy back home to your destinations. Thank you and God bless.
Sir, by virtue of my role as the Master of Ceremony of this gathering, I have the singular honor and privilege to invite His Excellency, the British High Commissioner, David Belgrove, to deliver his remarks. You're welcome, sir.
Chief of Defence Staff, Lieutenant General Drame, Commandant of the Training School, Director of Training, all the officers and personnel of the Gambian Armed Forces, all the members of the visiting British military forces. Good morning, and thank you for inviting me here today. As the British High Commissioner, it is always a pleasure and a great honour to be at these events, including a period of successful training between UK Armed Forces and the Gambian Armed Forces. Two armies who have a long history of training and indeed fighting side by side and learning from each other. And I know there's a wealth of experience here in this hall today. This is a military relationship that goes back more than a century. And I can think of no better symbol of the strong relationship and partnership between our two countries than we see here today. And regardless of what I think or say, I think the friendship and camaraderie that we've just witnessed is testament to that. And it's a relationship that I know will go and continue to go from strength to strength. And added to all of this is the fact that the skills you have been learning and perfecting are to contribute to the peace and stability of the region and the world. And it's a cause that we can all admire and applaud. I should like to thank all of those who have made this engagement possible. The Chief of Defence Staff, the Commandant of the Training School, all the members of the Gambian Armed Forces have been involved. British Peace Support Training Africa, represented here by Lieutenant Colonel Jenner, the Commanding Officer and his short-term training team, Lieutenant Walsh, but also our British Defence Section led by Lieutenant Colonel Charles Cooper, represented today by his ADA, Warrant Officer George Answer. So many people have been making this possible, and I thank them all. Because without all their cooperation, all your cooperation, none of this would be possible. And I know it takes a lot of dedication and tenacity to make this work, but work it does. So I would like to conclude by congratulating all of those who have successfully concluded this training here today. And I wish you all the very best for future deployments. Thank you very much indeed.
I'm privileged to invite our Chief Guest of Honor, the Chief of Defence Staff, Gambia Armed Forces, Lieutenant General Yakuba Abrams.
Good morning, gentlemen. It's a privilege to say gentlemen. So it behoves you to respond positively. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, sir. I can't hear you. Take pride to serve in uniform. I will say this, and I want to repeat myself. It's a pride to serve in uniform. Simply because serving in uniform is the ultimate sacrifice you can give to your country. There's a reward to serve your country in uniform. Because on the thick and thin, you will always stand to defend this country. And that is what makes you exceptional. And that is what makes you a good citizen. Given those explanations, I always insist that you should take pride in your uniform. Meaning whatever you do, you must do it with vigor and determination. And that is what makes you an exceptional individual. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, sir. I can hear you. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, sir. Like I mentioned, my last son, 9 years old, in my view, shouts louder than all of you combined. If I knew this was going to be the attitude, I was going to bring him over here. When he stands in front of all of you and makes just a gesture, you may think you have the presence of a flock of lions in front of you. So good morning. Good morning, sir! That's better. That's better. The British High Commissioner to the Republic of Gambia, His Excellency David Belgrove, the Commandant of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, the Commanding Officer, Guards Battalion, Principal Staff Officers at the Defense Headquarters here present, the Director of Peace Support Operations, the lead instructor of the British Short-Term Training Team, Chief Instructor, Gambia Armed Forces Training School, the Contingent Commander and Oversight of Gambia Armed Forces Quick Reaction Force 2, the diligent men and women of QRF2 here present, able men and women of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, distinguished members of the press, and allow me to say all other protocols duly and respectfully observed. Should I use the microphone or not?
As you wish, sir. Don't use the microphone, sir. You just come back way. You need to come back way, sir. Come back way, sir.
Or if there's a microphone, you can take off the microphone. Just switch it off. I'd rather use my military voice. I And the beauty of all this, I've given presentations, both within and outside the shores of this country, in the United States, elsewhere, in an auditorium far much bigger than this, where it's packed with intellectuals, and I've never used microphone. It takes a lot of courage and determination, and of course self-confidence, to stand to talk without waiting for the people. It takes a lot of confidence, determination, and high sense of responsibility to stand to talk without using the microphone. That's a culmination of 39 years of great service to my country. When perhaps some of you were not born. Even you were born, you were in a cradle. 38, 29 years of service to this great country, and with distinction for that matter. One thing I've learned over the years, the microphone can't always fail me, but my military boys have never failed me. The microphone is a microphone on? The microphone, what is the difference? The microphone and okay. No difference. The microphone, I've learned over the years, have the tendency and have the potential to perhaps give me outperformance. But my voice had never failed. I've given lectures. I've served as a panelist. I've engaged in very constructive and frank discussions, both within and outside the shores of this country. Doing so without the microphone and simply using my military voice. The military voice will never fail. Let me put it this way. Today, I feel gratified and of course a sense of duty to preside over this closing ceremony to mark a 3-week intensive training in the context of preparation for quick reaction force. You may recall in 2019, the Gambia Armed Forces made a solemn pledge at the level of the United Nations, in which case we gave a firm commitment to say we would like to provide what we call a quick reaction force in any ongoing missions across the world. Given your impeccable track record in peace support operations, the United Nations without hesitations said to us, you can be assured of a place in one of the missions. This was made possible because of some of you and all of you, both your predecessors and those currently serving in peace support operations. You've served with diligence. You've served with high sense of integrity. You've served with high sense of moral conduct in the performance of your functions. On this basis, you've maintained what I call impeccable track performance record in all missions we've taken part in. In Liberia, for instance, as pioneers of that mission, dating back in 1990, the Gambia, this is where it all started. Just to draw you back to memory lane, I recall in 1990, in July of 1990, we had a convergence of ECOWAS heads of state in this country, held at kind of a hotel. Then as a lieutenant, 1990, that's 32 years ago, I remember vividly, that meeting signaled the beginning of ECOWAS partaking in peace support operations. Some of you may not be present, but you may be witnessing to the word ECOMOG. That's ECOWAS Monetary Observer Group in Liberia. First meeting was held in July. of 1992. The second meeting of heads of state, again in this country, was held in August. Given the deplorable condition at the time in Liberia, there were untold hardship and difficulties, characterized by senseless killings. But these are the repercussions of conflict. The whole country basically was brought to the knees. ECOWAS, given what we stand for, even though from the inception it was supposed to solve monetary integration amongst member states, but we found in achieving our desired aim and objective as a region, there is a need to have peace and tranquility within the region. This brings me to the issue of Gambia. Peace and security is a prerequisite for societal cohesion and sustainable national development. Meaning, we cannot achieve what we yearn for as a nation in the absence of peace and security. Peace without security is not sustainable, and security without peace is not durable. Perhaps as an emphasis, there is a symbiotic relationship between peace, security, and sustainable development. No country in the world can reach its full potential in terms of growth and development in the absence of peace and security. Given that reasons, countries all over the world would put measures in place to serve as a catalyst to prevent conflict in that country. And the Gambia is not an exception. Conflict provokes and unprovoked. Conflict breeds what we call deep-felt animosity. In Israel, always, there's what we call vicious circle, meaning that aspect of revenge is natural process. It's a natural instinct. We can forgive, but we cannot forget. You can forgive somebody, but you cannot forget your ugly past. More so if someone had inflicted pain on you. Yes, you may say, I want to forgive you. But that is just one aspect of it. But naturally, by your instinct as an individual and as a reflex action, each time you set eye on the individual, it reminds you of the ugly past. Conflict usually always, those who pay the brunt of the price, the girl child, our sisters and mothers, and the elderly. Our experience serving in peace support operations, the beauty about myself, I've never gone into any mission where it's to keep the peace. I've gone in when it's untenable. Liberia, with ECOMOG, with ECOMIL, I've gone in as part of the planning team. So you can envisage what it means going in when it's untenable. It's a question of life and death. In Sierra Leone, from ECOMOG to UNAMSEL, again part of that planning team, we've seen the bad side of conflict. Let me be very clear. No one would emerge as a winner. Virtually everyone is a loser. Look, you may have the military might, but that's not the solution by itself. No matter how you try to project your military might, trust me, you have to come back to the drawing board, which is negotiation. We have seen it in Afghanistan. Over 20 years, it never worked. And what is the solution? Peaceful settlement. Reason why I always say this, and I want to say this again. In the Gambia context, we cannot afford to be divided as a country. Whether it's on tribal grounds or political lines, it is going to serve nobody's interest. Gambia, by our very nature, our relationship relationships are interwoven. In other words, we are interconnected by blood. And over the years, we've allowed what we call intermarriages amongst ourselves. Meaning individually, you have perhaps clusters of tribes within you. You could be, for instance, a Fulama, or you could have a wife that is a Jola. And beside our traditional interactions, Jolas and Fulas, other surnames and other surnames. And that is what makes Gambia a very unique country. Let's not allow politics or tribalism to derail all the achievements we've been able to achieve as a country. I'm saying this simply because you will be deployed in peacekeeping mission. Usually always, what are the causes of conflict in Africa? Tribalism plays a very critical role. Another issue is when one group of the society, perhaps out of consideration, deem it that they are socio-economically marginalized. And if this is the perception they carry, they resort to using alternative means. And that is why usually always every individual should be taken along board. Some border dispute, and the list would go on and on. In the Gambia, we are one big family. Let nobody fool anyone. There is a need for peace in this country. Why? This country is not endowed, let me say that bluntly. If today there is a conflict in this country, assuming the markets are closed, because nobody out of his senses will go to the market to sell if there's conflict. If the markets are closed for 2 days, how many of you would bring food to your family? Most Gambians, if not all Gambians, they live from hand to mouth. Meaning, what they go out to hustle for the day is what they bring back on the table for the family to feed. How many of you could shop for 3 days? How many of you? I want to believe the majority of us is either we go to the market today or we shop for 2 days. And assuming there is a conflict situation in this country, and assuming all the markets are closed, assuming not only that, schools will be closed, and of course, you can be assured of salaries if there's a functional government. People can engage in businesses when there is a semblance of peace. I'm giving you this simply because this is why you are trained today to go to somebody's country, to preserve the peace. Today we are lucky, and I pray we continue to be like this. We have peace in this country. However, in recent past, we've observed some ugly trends. People inciting one another on the basis of tribes, on the basis of politics. It has no meaningful standing in what we call Gambia. I have to say it, because that's what I represent. When it comes to the crunch, those who perhaps may be the instigators will run away and leave us. You and I would say to make sure that this country remains intact. You've done it in the past, during the political impasse. When the perpetrators themselves, they all ran away. And let me commend your tenacity and hard work for making sure that this country remained the way it was. Congratulations to all of you. There is no amount that can replace peace and security. Countries like Sierra Leone, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, these are countries that are endowed with natural resources. When I talk of natural resources, I'm talking of diamond, gold, bauxite, chromite, you name it. And they have oil as well. But go to Sierra Leone, you compare this rate of development in the Gambia. Gambia is far much better. Why? They've been in wars, senseless wars, that retarded all what they've been able to achieve. Far back for more than 10, 20 years ago. But remember, acceleration and recovery is going to be much faster than if there's a problem in this country. They have natural resources. We do not have. You go to Liberia, for instance, country that is definitely endowed. But let somebody tell you, we've served there. I served 2 tours in Liberia. And all these 2 tours I went in, it was when it was untenable. After many years, they've recovered from the war. But go see Liberia. Still, there's deep felt animosity. There is this circle, meaning people cannot trust one another. These are the repercussions of conflict. The Nigerian Civil War of 1967. What was the cause? Tribal. Because one section of the country, or one region of the country, felt they should break away from the federation. Because Nigeria is a federal state, it's a federal country. One person said they wanted to break out because why? In their views, they are socio-economically marginalized. On the basis of that, they felt the need to break away from the federation. And what ensued afterwards? A bitter civil war that lasted for 3 years. In the process, there were untold hardships and sufferings and many killings. Many millions of people died. Some starved to death. And by the way, Nigeria is endowed economically. They have the potential. If it is well harnessed, they can be a key player not only in Africa but even outside Africa. And besides, Nigeria, they have enough food. They don't depend on importation of food. You can live in Nigeria for 1-2 years. I've lived there without you having any recourse to go for rice. Gambians, rice is our staple food. Unfortunately, we import all rice that comes into this country, with the exception of few. Assuming there is a conflict, who is going to bring you rice? I felt I should share it with you. I've served almost 39 years in the military. It is your turn to work towards the maintenance of peace and tranquility in this country. I've given you catalogs of some repercussions of conflict. What it means, you will not be paid salary if there's conflict. Government pays you when government gets money. The Gambia's economy is tax-based. Do you understand what I mean by tax-based? What they collect now, Monica men collect, is what they use to pay you and I. And that is what makes the government functional. Who pays tax when there is conflict? And if there is no money pouring into the national coffers, how do you receive your salary? I felt the need to share this with you. We've served our time. I have less than a year to live. Now the onus is on you. How do we preserve the peace and tranquility of this great country? I'll be reliably informed that you are one of the 3 chains that we pledge to the United Nations. To say the Gambia Armed Forces and by extension the Gambia as a country, we are prepared to provide 3 QRFs because it's in line with some requirements. You must have a succession plan. We have period of 1, 2, and 3. You happens to be 2. Like I mentioned earlier on, without hesitation, when we made the pledge at the United Nations wholeheartedly accepted our pledge. Simply because we have maintained a reputable record at the United Nations. Either in the context of force protection, in the context of staff officers, in the context of military observers. We've never had any adverse report against any one of you. You should be very proud of yourself for that. Bigger militaries, well endowed. I've served as Chief of Admin and Personnel in UNMIL when the mission was conceived, from transition from ECOMIL African mission in Liberia to United Nations mission in Liberia as the Chief of admin and personnel. I've seen it all. And remember, the Gambia came into the mission in September of 2003, when we had spent about 3-4 years planning that mission. 3-4 months rather planning the mission. But we've never had any adverse report. You've served diligently in Darfur. You've served in other parts of the world with that consummate professionalism. On the basis of that, the United Nations said, look, we have a place for you. Perhaps let me emphasize. Usually, always, given my experience working at the United Nations, if there is an ongoing mission, usually always you find it difficult to have a foothold in those missions. Because when the idea is conceived to establish a new mission, that is what we call the concept of operation is designed. When a concept of operation is designed, it entails what is required to sustain the mission. What the troops requirement is done. They start the generation of the troops, and then UN member state will do what we call pledging. In other words, they identify area of concerns, how many battalions, how many support elements they will need, etc., etc. Countries giving their strength and capabilities would then have make a pledge. But imagine, in our case, there is an existing mission. And they said to Gambia, we want you to come up with a quick reaction force in MINUSCA, the Central African Republic. That's an exceptional privilege accorded to us. There are big armed forces, big armies, but they don't ask them to provide a QRF. Perhaps, let me emphasize, traditional force protection role is totally different from the concept of being a quick reaction force. QRF is more demanding, more risky, more challenging from all perspectives. You go to undertake very dangerous missions. It's not the traditional protection force you do. But again, they have confidence in you. They believe in your capacity and capability. They believe you can perform to expectation. On the basis of that, they did not hesitate. They said, Gambia, we want to give you QRF. Take pride to say I'm part of QRF 1, 2, and 3. Today, I've been reliably informed that the cause, which lasted for 3 weeks, was a culmination of very, very intensive training. The training embraced all what is required of you when you are deployed in the context of QRF. Some of the areas I've been told, you were taught in Military deployments. We expect you to do more than what you've taught today. Because usually, always, what you learn, and when you are deployed, and then you're faced with these scenarios, it calls for intuition and imagination to adapt to any given circumstances. And remember, in all operations, time is of essence. In other words, how you make well-calculated decision, given the limited time that is available, will determine the outcome of what you want to achieve. Of course, training is key. Training is the mainstay of any organization. In the military, training is most essential to the units in the performance of their constitutional mandate and other assigned roles, i.e. peacekeeping operations. Given this, my office will continue to provide priorities to training and retraining programs that enhance your professional competence so that, given any circumstances, you will live up to expectation. Before I conclude, it is fitting and proper to pay special tribute to the British High Commissioner, whom personally I called a friend of the armed forces. And indeed, we've had these one-to-one discussions on many occasions. In other words, his doors are always open each time I have a proposal. And the good thing is, he's always willing to fulfill my requirements. And I want to say, Excellency, thank you so much indeed. Usually, always, I don't like making comparisons, but I want to say this. During this tourney, we've benefited immensely, immensely, from the active participation of the British military in line with the brothers and sisters in the Gambia Armed Forces to undertake training and retraining programs. We want to say thank you, Your Excellency, for everything. And of course, it would be remiss of me also to conclude without making positive reference to our defense attaché. It's our defense attaché, by the way. Lieutenant Colonel Charles Cooper. Again, I don't like making comparison, but he's an exceptional individual. I've said it in his eyes, I want to say it in his absence. During his tenure, we worked together to come up with some productive outcomes together. He's always willing and always ready to respond positively to our requests. Please convey through him, Honorable Officer, my heartfelt thanks and appreciation for his love and affection towards the professional competence of the armed forces. And of course, the British short-term training team, and through you, to the Director of Training, the Director of Peace Support Operations, we want to say exceptionally thank you. We treasured your time, we treasured your tenacity, and of course we treasure your high sense of responsibility, and we've diligently worked towards making this day a very successful outcome. With that, we say thank you for a job well done. To the commandant, fine men and women of the Gambia Armed Forces Training School, you've always lived to expectations. You've always lived to expectations. You're always willing to accept new challenges, even in the absence of limitations in terms of logistics. Remember, country is not endowed. We do with what is available, and you've always worked within the limited resources. Congratulations to you and your men. Okay, behind the success, behind every achievement in life, usually always people sit at the corner on the day, on the night, to the planning and preparations. In this case, the Directorate of Training worked tirelessly in making sure that we do proper coordination, and of course, the planning and preparation for these exercises. Today, I'm sure he's gratified to say all these weeks we've been planning together. It is not a wasteful event, but rather a very resounding, successful event. And of course, Colonel Bojan, thank you very much for everything. And to the press, distinguished members of the press, we want to say thank you for always responding positively to our calls each time we call you to cover events that relate to the military. We treasure your partner, we treasure the partnership. We hope, of course, you would always oblige us when we need you again. And finally, the Minister of Defense. They've been always supportive. Be it moral support, be it guidance, and whatever you call it. Each time we approach them on issues that pertains to the upbringing of the armed forces, they always oblige us with the present. With that, I want to say well done to that. And to the training team, allow me to wish you God's journey mercies as you move back to your respective destinations, because I'll be reliably informed that tomorrow you'll be leaving. On the basis of that, well done to all of you, and take pride for such an accomplished event. Are we good to go? Are we good to go? I can't hear you. Are we good to go? I said take pride to serve in uniform. I'm not using a microphone, but I can shout than all of you. Take pride to serve in uniform. Are you good to go? That's better. Well done.